I hope Don Beebe's still with us, not devastated by the fact that two people didn't know where he played college football. The former Packer wide receiver, of course, part of the Super Bowl team, Don Beebe, joins the program now, as declared by me, the national spokesman for Brett Favre. Good afternoon, Don.
I'm crushed.
I would be
I'm absolutely
too.
crushed. They didn't know Shadron State.
Well, you know what? I could have made sure they would have been failed totally if I'd have said he played at Shadron State. Spell it.
Well, I will tell those guys I didn't know where Shadron was either until they called me.
There you go.
So,
It's the only thing about your bio when you came that I refuse to believe. There's no way.
How are you, man?
I'm good, and I view you, and I had to talk to Don Beebe, and I feel like we could do a whole hour, and I would just listen because of all the stories and all the things you can say about Brett Favre. So where do you start? What is the first thing you are thinking of or want people to realize or you would say, given that he's now being inducted this weekend into the Hall of Fame?
Well, first, I'm very happy for him. He's certainly well-deserving of being a Hall of Famer. That goes without saying. I don't think anybody would argue that point. It's going to be a great weekend for him and his family. And it was just an honor to be able to play with the guy. I was fortunate to play with two Hall of Fame quarterbacks, him and Jim, and both of them were a ton of fun to play with because they both played the game the way it should be played for the fun of it, and they had a lot of fun doing it. I think sometimes you see men out there playing, even today, to a certain degree, that it's a little bit more about them and what they can get out of it. That was not Brett. Brett just loved to play the game, and it was fun playing with him.
Talking with Don Beebe, as I declared the national spokesman for Brett Favre. So, ton of fun. Can you elaborate? Is that on the field? Is that off the field? What does that mean, or what did it mean to each of them?
Well, both. Obviously, Brett was extremely competitive. I'll be honest with you. If you're playing at that level, you're an extremely competitive person. I don't think you can make it that far and not be extremely competitive. But Brett was kind of like off the charts competitive. We used to play a lot of golf together on Fridays.
You were the one who declared that he cheated. You were the first person to nationally mention that. Not that I don't know that he cheated, but that you know of a time on the last hole, ball into the woods. Oh, I found it. I am correct.
Yeah.
You went national with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here we are 20 years later talking about this. Yeah, I mean, he's a cheater. I mean, he actually cheated. And Frankie, I was just with Frank Winters a few weeks ago. We were going back playing in a golf tournament, Jim Kelly's tournament, and I was on the flight with Frank, and we were talking about it because Frank was there, Mark Chimero was there, and you can't be 50 yards in the woods. I mean, literally 50 yards in the woods, dense woods, okay, and find your ball and then hit it out of there to the middle of the fairway. It was impossible. He cheated. And I wish that maybe he could say that in his speech coming up this weekend, that he cheated.
Just apologize.
That'd be nice to hear. That would be nice to hear, yeah. He still owes me $100, by the way.
Before that game.
Yeah, that game.
Or is there another event that he owes you $100 for? I don't know.
No, he had a famous saying, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And he lived that out.
Playing golf. Or are we doing...
Competitive. I will give Brett Favre competitive. But the cool thing about it is he was that way in the huddle. He was that way in the locker room, on the golf course. But yet he did it in a way that was really funny. You've seen the clips. The behind the scenes when he was mic'd up. He's a funny guy. I'll give him that. And he made it very light and yet very fun. Even in high pressure situations, he made it very fun. And I've seen different sides of other athletes at the highest, the peak of level, being the Super Bowl. Brett was the same in the Super Bowl that he would be in a preseason game. Some guys couldn't get to that level. It's kind of like a 3-foot putt when you're going to win the Ryder Cup. Brett would go up there and drill it. Some guys would, their knees would be knocking. You would never know with Brett Favre whether the game was losing by 40 or winning by 40.
You played, Don, so you can probably explain it better than Homer and I could. How in the world is a player like Brett, as hard as he played, able to play and start in 297 consecutive games?
Well, first thing is you could ask so many guys that played a long time in the league, and for that, hands down to me, I think is his greatest accomplishment. More than winning a Super Bowl, more than the most yards and most touchdowns and all those things until Peyton beat it. I think his greatest accomplishment was how many games he played in a row. That's insane to be able to do what he did. Now, in saying that, you have to be a really tough guy. And I played with a lot of tough guys, but Brett would have to be up there probably in the top 3 or so of tough guys, because I've seen that guy play with, his thumb was so messed up, and he's out there taking snaps, and you knew he couldn't, he shouldn't be out there. I've seen him out there with injuries that normal guys wouldn't be playing. And that's where, as a player playing with a guy like him, you highly respect that. And I think that's what made him great. Was that type of attitude.
Talking with Don Beebe, my self-declared national spokesman for Brett Favre, inducted into the.
You got to stop saying that, Homer.
Why? You don't feel? I'm saying it. Yes. All right. So. All wide receivers talk about, well, he did this or did that, or so you'd been with Jim Kelly. So what was he like as a quarterback in terms of, did you know he might throw to you? What was his approach in the huddle to the plays? And so you're, set and, it's like he could wing it or he's the gunslinger, but he's got what did you know about him that you learned about getting open, or would he throw you the ball, that kind of stuff as a receiver?
Well, first thing is, I remember sitting in the receiver meeting, actually in the team meeting, and the top 10 plays would be handed out. And all the wide receivers, Brooksy, me, Free, we'd be sitting in the back row, and we'd get this sheet, and you're just looking at this sheet thinking and praying that you're not on that first probably 3, 4, 5 plays on a slant route or a hitch route, because you knew it was going to be high and hard, and you had to go and get it. And you weren't going to probably catch it, because every ball was sailing early, because he was just so amped up. I mean, he'd be in the weight room before the game just screaming, let's go. And I was like, he's a quarterback, acting like a linebacker, But one thing about him is, you knew as a wide receiver, you didn't have to beat your guy really, really bad, because he could put it in such a tight window and put it on you so fast that's the thing you had to be aware of. So if you're running like a speed out, you better get that head turned real fast, because it's going to be on you very quickly. Unlike other quarterbacks that I played with, he was a guy that you had to make sure that you got that head snap quickly, and you didn't need a lot of room, because he would fit it in there.
Was there ever a player, one that you and other receivers would talk about, or you thought, I can't believe he just did that? You just can't throw the ball like that and complete it, or just it amazed you with either accuracy or strength or both?
Well, again, one thing about Brett is he, like most quarterbacks that you see, even back in the day, but even today, their throwing motions are so efficient. It's just fine-tuned, and you look at Aaron Rodgers throwing, it's just like, it's really quick. Brett, you watch him throw, he'd throw it like he's got every muscle in his body into that throw. His big toe is into that throw. Mechanically was probably not a real sound thrower, but man, he just threw it hard because he got everything into it. But I tell you, Brett was, I remember one time I was running a slant route. It was against Detroit in Lambeau, and he fit one in a window that it was on me, and I didn't think it was ever going to get through. And he put it right there, and I caught it, and then got drilled by the safety. And I'm sitting there like it was right around one yard line, and I can't even breathe. And Brett comes up and he goes, smacks me in the back of the head, and he goes, "You're all right, let's go." It's like, Brett, I can't breathe here. But that was just the way he was. And he didn't mean it in a bad way. He was just like, "Let's go, dude. Let's score a touchdown, man. Get up." But and you just have to chuckle when with a guy like him. Never was I ever sensed, and this is what I think I enjoyed the most out of him, being the Hall of Fame guy that he is. I never sensed that he thought he was bigger than anybody else on the football field. He was just another fun-loving guy out there playing, and that's what I respected him probably the most.
So we have Chewy on a weekly basis, and he claimed, and I don't know if you were there then, that Mike Holmgren never called Favre on anything he did, that whenever Favre did something wrong, that he had someone else talk to him.
Yeah.
That at that point in Favre's career, Mike Holmgren, who I remember you talking about how intense he was and how detailed and how, I don't want to say he was crazy, but he was just over the top. And it was hard when Chewy said that for me to believe that at some point Holmgren wasn't or didn't want to challenge Favre, even when he screwed up, that he had other people do it.
Yeah, he would just get so mad in the game because Brett, he would just do things that were just crazy, nuts. Drive a head.
What is that? What, he don't throw this pass? Or
he'd try to fit it in small windows that he probably shouldn't have thrown the ball. He would make terrible decisions. I mean, that's why, he's the all-time leader in interceptions and fumbles, by the way.
Which I claim is other than that, it's incredible that you can be that good and throw that many interceptions, and he was. He won. How do you win throwing that many interceptions? I don't know that anybody's ever done it.
Well,
I'm not sure
the thing
anybody
about
ever
it
will.
is that he also, obviously we know, was the all-time leader in touchdowns at one time, too.
Right.
So he threw a lot of touchdowns also.
Yes.
But
you throw that many interceptions, you usually can't
I think
win.
goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that nothing ever fazed him. I mean, he could throw 4 interceptions and you wouldn't even know it. He'd just go out there and throw a touchdown and win the game. He never thought he was out of a game, ever. It didn't matter what the score was or what the momentum may have shifted to. Brettby's like, dude, let's go. And I can tell you, and I've said this to you before, Homer, that was the difference between the Packers win the Super Bowl in 31 and why Buffalo could never win one, was when we got to that game in Buffalo, we'd make a mistake, it was kind of like deflated. You go to the sideline, it was complete quiet, and it was just like, dude, we're fine. We're still in this game, Whereas in Super Bowl 31, I'll never forget it, we went up 10-0. Next thing you know, Bledsoe, boom, boom, we're down 14-10. And you go to the sideline, and on the Packers sideline, and Brett was one of them. He's like, dude, come on, man. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. It's no big deal. We're down 14-10. Who cares? Well, next thing you know, halftime score is 27-14. That's what made a guy like Brett great. It didn't matter if he threw an interception. He was going to go out there and thought he could win any game.
Did Holmgren ever get mad at you because he was mad at Favre?
Oh, good point. Yeah, that was Mike. Mike would always get mad at somebody else and then go chew somebody else out when he should have been chewing number 4 out. And then he'd tell Andy Reid, Andy, go. I remember one time he'd say, get him out of there. Get him out of there. Oh, no, don't worry about it. No, just leave him alone. I was like, Brett drove Mike crazy. And I think Mike be the first to admit that. But he knew how great he was, or how great he was going to be. Because obviously toward the middle to the end of his career at Green Bay in their, time together, he didn't scream at him as much. Let's just say that. But boy, that was fun to watch.
How did you handle him leaving Green Bay? What were you thinking at the time, and what do you think now?
Well, again, my feelings on that was I believe he never wanted to leave Green Bay. I believe he was forced to leave Green Bay. And then they bring in Aaron, which, he was the heir apparent, but Brett was like, dude, I can still play. We don't need to bring in Aaron. I can still play this game. I don't think I need to be forced out. And I think he felt, to me, I thought and I'm not speaking for him, but I thought he felt forced to leave. And when he said, okay, fine, I'll retire. And then June rolls around, or July rolls around, he starts thinking to himself, I'm throwing this ball around with these high school kids down here, and I can still throw. I'm not going to retire. So then that's why he went to the, Jets in Minnesota, and he just wanted to keep playing. I can't blame a guy for that. The guy just wanted to play football.
Talking with Don Beebe. Do we need a break, or we just keep going? I said I could do the entire hour with you. Can we take a break? And because I got a list of like 5 questions. The most incorrect thing people say about Brett Favre, I always think it's that he was one of the smartest players and did what he did because he knew where everybody was going to be. The guy at Mississippi State, or at Southern Miss, said he's the smartest quarterback they ever had. That was the first thing he told me. How many receivers did he break fingers? I got more after that. You got a couple minutes left?
Oh, yeah.
All right. More Don Beebe. Next.
This is Homer and Gabe on ESPN Wisconsin and ESPNWisconsin.com.
From the Echo Tap, Homer and Gabe, and we are talking to Don Beebe. For those people who are you smarter than Gabe? He played college football at Shadron State in Nowhere, Nebraska. I don't believe that's the town itself. How did you end up there? Well, you were so fast it didn't matter where you played that they were going to notice you, right?
Well, yeah, the reason I landed up there, I was at Western Illinois, and then 3 years later, after I was putting siding on houses, the guy that recruited me when he was at Western Illinois became the head football coach at Shadron State, and I was out of NCAA eligibility, and then landed up going out to NAIA school, Shadron. That's the only reason I got out there. And then I got to the combine, and my life changed.
There you go, and because you had the fastest time ever, right, at the time?
At that time, yeah. Deion Sanders and I both ran a 4.25 that year.
Tied with Don Beebe because he is.
How fast can you still run a 40?
Oh, that's one of my questions. Gabe Neitzel, my partner, ran a 4.640 recently on the cement in front of the station. Could you beat him in a race?
Well, I'm 51 now, and the last time that I ran a 40-yard dash, I ran it at 40 years old at a speed camp in Lake Zurich, Illinois, and I ran a 4.38. So I don't.
Yeah, no, he's got me.
I don't know. That's 10 years.
No,
that was 11 years.
No.
So I don't.
I still think so. I still think you got it.
All right.
You still got it.
My 10 questions about Brett Favre for Don Beebe. I mentioned before the most incorrect thing that you hear or have heard about Brett Favre that you want to say to people. Look, it's just not so.
Yeah, I did a speaking engagement in Milwaukee, and this was a while ago, and it was all during the time that Brett was kind of going in and out and all that stuff. And I asked people I said, how many people here, and there must have been 200 people there, how many people here are really upset with Brett and never want to see him in Green Bay again? And I would bet 70% of the people raised their hand. I was shocked. And so I had to explain to them, I think this is the most misunderstood, at least it was then, I don't know if it is much anymore, but I'm sure there's still people out there, that Brett, as I said earlier, just wanted to play. He just wanted to play, and he felt forced out, and it was a little upsetting, which I can understand that, to his degree. But I also understand the Packers' point of view on it, too. I really do. And it worked out for them, as obviously Aaron Rodgers being one of the greats, too. But I think that was probably one of the most misunderstood things about Brett Favre.
Did he make all receivers better, or were the receivers just pretty good based on the ones that Ron Wolf brought in?
Yeah, no, we definitely made Brett the Hall of Fame guy he is. I'm just kidding. No, Brett was, going back to, again, what I said earlier, Homer, that when he could fit it in windows like he did, and it's on you so fast, that when you catch it, you have more room, typically, to make a guy miss and then score, so you get more yards after the catch. So when the ball gets to there, and the timing of the game, which I've always said timing is the number one thing in quarterbacking, makes receivers and the whole system itself better. And I thought Brett did that very well. But I will say this. That's because of Mike Holmgren. If Brett never met Mike Holmgren, I don't believe that would have been the case.
He wouldn't. Would he be in the Hall of Fame? Ron Wolf has said it didn't matter where he played. That guy's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah.
Would Brett Favre, in your opinion, be in the Hall of Fame without Mike Holmgren?
You know what? This might sound shocking, but I would probably say no to that. Only because not that Brett didn't have the talent to be a Hall of Fame guy, but what made Brett become who he became was the understanding of the game that he learned through Mike Holmgren, that Bill Walsh basically taught Mike, that made Joe Montana who he became also. So there's no doubt I think Brett became the Hall of Fame guy because of the mind of Mike Holmgren.
Did Brett Favre play favorites with receivers?
I don't know. First of all, I don't think you would ever known it because he never would say it, and he never acted that way. But I think every quarterback has their favorite guy in whatever situation and whatever route. It could be an out route, a go route, a post route, a dig route, a special cut like a Freeman. He used to do this corner post route that he was so good at. I'm sure Brett would say, I'm going to free on this. A crossing route, he's probably going to say, I'm going to Brooksy. So I think there's certain routes that he would say he favored a guy.
Can Brett
Well,
Favre?
Well, I was just going to say, early in his career, it seemed like he favored Sterling Sharp for every route.
Yeah, that's true. But and especially when you're a young guy, it's kind of like your pacifier. Always going to go try to find that. And Sterling was that guy just like Andre Reed was for Jim. So yeah, there's no question. Every quarterback, Jerry and Joe, has their favorite guy. But I still go to the fact that if I was running a go route, if I was in the game, and not saying this, if it was a go route, Jim was probably going to look toward me, or Brett was going to look toward me if I was in the game. But certain other routes, he's probably going to look for that other guy. And Brooksy obviously was that guy with Brett. That underneath stuff and the high percentage passes, Brooksy was his guy.
Could Brett Favre still play today as a backup if he didn't have to play that often?
He's in pretty good shape from what I hear. I think that he would say yes because I know his mentality and his makeup. Matter of fact, he would definitely say yes. But I would probably have to say no, only on the mobility fact. If he could just stand there, his arm, I believe, could still play. Yes, that I do believe.
That's what he said on the Gruden quarterback camp that he did, where he said throwing's not the issue.
Getting hit?
I don't want to get hit.
Yeah.
Talking with Don Beebe, what got Brett Favre mad?
Wow. That's a great question. I don't know if I could ever honestly say that I ever saw Brett Favre really mad, except when he would hook his drive.
Because my next question was, who got Brett Favre mad? I mean, he had to get bothered by Holmgren, I'm thinking, but I don't.
God, I'll tell you, Homer.
We always thought Bill Schrader got him mad, but I don't know how true that was.
Yeah, I don't ever remember. I don't think I ever saw Brett yell. I don't know if I ever saw him really ticked off at someone. That just wasn't Brett's makeup. I mean, he was such an easygoing country guy that was. I don't know if I ever saw him mad. I really don't, except on the golf course if he hit a bad shot. That was it.
Was there a team that he enjoyed beating more than any other?
Yeah, Minnesota and the Bears. I mean, between those two, it depends on who you were. Probably how good that team was in the makeup of that game. It was going to be probably one of those two teams.
As the players on that side of the ball say, was the defense actually better than the offense the year you won the Super Bowl?
Wow. Boy, I think that's a toss-up.
Wow. I thought the offensive guy would stick up for his guys.
Well,
the defense will take this as a thumbs up.
I just think it's a toss-up. I don't think I don't believe we had a real weakness because we were savvy in so many positions. You look at safety and Butler and Eugene. I mean, they were so savvy. They probably weren't the greatest athletic guy in the 40 or jumping and stuff of that nature, but they were just great football players and great leaders. I don't think we had a weakness. I really don't. In that whole team, that whole makeup of that team. Obviously, our D linemen, our linebackers were good. I don't know if we had a Hall of Fame great off the chart linebacker, but they were all good football players. That's a toss-up for me. Buffalo, if you're asking me about the Buffalo era, hands down the offense.
Yeah. The loss to Denver, how did Favre handle it? How did everybody handle it? Our assumption is it had to be the toughest or most devastating loss, having a chance and been the favorite to win back-to-back Super Bowls.
Well, the team in general. Now, for me personally, it was the most difficult loss because I didn't get to play, and I was.
Yeah, you weren't active. You were inactive, right?
Yeah, and and I should have been active. I should have been out there playing, and and they told me Tuesday before the game that I was going to be inactive for no apparent reason, and I still don't know why. But so with that being said, that was a very hard loss for me because I thought, I could maybe help the team on a 3rd and 10 or, just a big play or something. But for Brett, obviously it's a great question for him, but just seeing him in the locker room afterwards, it's just, listen, there's nobody that's experienced more Super Bowl losses than the guy you're talking to, 5. Mm-hmm. So I know what that locker room looks like, and it's not fun. It's not fun for anybody involved with the whole program. It's not fun for the fans. You get that far, and it's such a great feat, and everybody's excited, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we lost the Super Bowl. The whole season's just down the tubes. Well, as you look back on it, what a great feat it was to get the back-to-back. What a great feat it was to get the 4 with Buffalo. It's just it's an experience that any fan would love. But man, I'll tell you, that was an awful win, an awful loss against Denver, because we should have won the game. There's just no doubt in my mind, and I'll go to my grave saying we should have won that game.
Were you surprised that he selected Deanna to do the introduction?
No, not at all. He should. He should have Deanna, because
explain.
I will say this: that if I was ever in that situation, whatever level that I would pick my wife. Nobody knows him better than Deanna. Nobody. They're high school sweethearts. She's been there in the good and the bad. And God bless him for choosing his wife. I think that's a great pick.
Talking with Don Beebe, and this will close our conversation, and that is, so they pick you. We now pick you to give the introduction to Brett Favre. How long do you normally get? What would you say?
For Brett Favre, I think they let you go as long as you want.
What would you say that you would want all those people? Football, I mean, all the current Hall of Famers, they're there, and Don Beebe is now going to introduce Brett Favre. How would you do it?
The first thing I would say is ask him $100. That'd be the first thing I'd ask. Okay, but I would say this, and I would want people to know this, and we've talked about this before, Homer, is that the guy played the game the way it should be played. I see so many kids, even in high school now, okay, and everything trickles down from Sunday afternoon to Saturday afternoon in college down to Friday night high school. Everything trickles down. And when they see guys play it for themselves, okay, it's all about me, and they do all these dances and stuff of this nature when they score or whatever it is. I know you're having fun and that's great, but there's a certain line you just don't cross. Brett never crossed that line when it came to playing the game, and he had fun doing it. He played it for the right reasons, and that would be the theme of my message that I would want to get across. All the kids that were watching that Hall of Fame speech should know that this guy played the game that way it should be.
Thanks for giving us the time. I know you got that second book, right? Where can people get it?
Yeah, 6 Rings from Nowhere. You can go to donbeebe.com, and what I'm doing nowadays outside of still coaching is I'm doing a lot of public speaking. I travel around and speak at businesses and churches and whatever. And everything is at donbeebe.com, Homer.
Thanks for the time. Great stuff. You are the national spokesman for Brett Favre. You don't like it any more now than when I said it before, do you?
Not really.
Thanks, Don.
You bet, Homer.